They say winning fixes everything, that as long as you have the trophies, history will remember your name. But what they don't tell you is that becoming the perfect winner can make you disappear. Tim Duncan won 5 championships, 3 finals MVPs, 2 regular season MVPs. He set a league record with 15 all-defensive selections, never missed the playoffs, and was the face of a dynasty that reigned over the NBA for decades. And yet, no one gives him the respect he deserves. He's the greatest power forward of all time, but barely cracks the top 10. He won 72% of the games he played in, but was carried by his supporting cast and an all-time great coach. In a sport where personalities and highlights often elevate perception, Timmy stayed in his lane, dominating in silence. He didn't possess the awe factor of a Kobe or a LeBron, but in a league that seems to put winning over everything, the ultimate winner remains underrated, despite doing everything right. Tim Duncan was born and raised in the US Virgin Islands, a quiet Caribbean haven that felt a million miles away from a league he'd go on to dominate decades later. But in his early years, those dreams of performing in front of millions wouldn't take place on the hardwood, instead, the pool. In his early teens, Duncan was an elite, competitive freestyle swimmer with his sights set on the 1992 Olympics. But fate had other plans. In September of 1989, Hurricane Hugo hit the island, destroying the only Olympic-sized pool they had. And with nowhere to take his talents, Duncan shifted away from swimming and gravitated towards basketball. At 14 years old and already over 6 feet tall, Timmy picked up a basketball for the first time, and the kid was a natural. His swimming background gave him elite footwork, coordination, body control, and balance. And as he grew to 6'9" by his senior year, a scholarship was awaiting him at Wake Forest University. By his sophomore season, Tim was regarded as one of the top prospects in the country. Jerry West said he would have likely been selected first overall had he declared for the 1995 draft. But to everyone's surprise, he didn't, because Tim had a promise to keep. 5 years prior, on April 24th, 1990, just a day before Duncan's 14th birthday, he made a promise to his dying mother on her deathbed that he would go to college and get his degree. There was no chance he was leaving school early. This was more than basketball. Timmy went on to win countless awards, dominate the college stage, and finish his senior year as the top player in the country. But most importantly, he got that degree. A hurricane that seemingly ended his dreams just 8 years ago was the very thing that led him here. It was a blessing in disguise.
With the first pick in the 1997 NBA draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Tim Duncan from Wake Forest University.
Drafted first overall in 1997, Duncan was joining a San Antonio Spurs team that had been chasing a title for over a decade, with one of the game's premier players in David Robinson. And now with another polished big man and a newly established head coach in Greg Popovich, the Spurs foundation was complete. Duncan instantly became a top player in the league, averaging 21, 12, 2, and 2.5 blocks to win the Rookie of the Year award. The kid was exactly as advertised, mature, steady, and built for this league. San Antonio's season, though, ended in the second round, but it was just a test run, and what came next was a complete paradigm shift. In 1999, the Twin Towers anchored the #1 defense in the NBA and blitzed the West with an 11-1 record to make the finals for the first time in franchise history, and the 22-year-old felt right at home. With all eyes on him, Duncan was calm, stoic, and just cool as a cucumber as he laid the hammer on New York, averaging 27 points, 14 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 blocks to win the World Championship, while becoming the second youngest player in history to capture the Finals MVP. 2 years into his career, Timmy had accomplished what many players spend an entire career chasing. But now came the hard part. He'd have to do it again. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . The NBA is a what have you done for me lately type of league. Once you win that big gold trophy, it becomes the standard for every season. Cool, you won, now do it again. The bar for a young Tim Duncan was unfathomably high, and with this type of perspective, the year 2000 was seen as a failure. Just a week before the start of the playoffs, Duncan put Scott Pollard in a body bag, but he tore his meniscus in the process. San Antonio lost in round 1 and the title defense was over. 2001 seemed like it'd be his year of redemption. They finished with the top record in the league, but got swept by the Kobe Shaq Lakers at the peak of their powers. San Antonio's Western Conference Finals loss had exposed what the common belief was around their team. They were only getting older. Duncan was in the early stages of his prime, but the rest of the roster needed a spark, and the 2001 draft provided it.
With the 28th pick in the 2001 draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Tony Parker of Racing Club Paris, France.
A young Frenchman named Tony Parker was added to the roster, the first piece of a young Spurs overhaul. In 2002, Duncan officially took the torch as the face of the franchise, and he lit the league on fire with it, averaging 25, 12, 3, and 2 to win his first career MVP trophy. No flash, no crazy headlines, it was just business for Timmy. And considering the fit he wore to accept his MVP trophy, it was right on brand. A red Nike tee, jorts, and sandals. It was your typical Tim Duncan attire. However, all the fun ended in round 2 with another loss to the Lakers as they go on to three-peat, giving Duncan all the fuel he needed. 2003 marked the start of a new era in San Antonio. It was David Robinson's final season, Tony Parker was entering his second, and Manu Ginobili, who the Spurs drafted in 1999, was finally making his NBA debut. It was a breath of fresh air. Duncan won his second MVP, becoming just the 8th player to go back-to-back. Many were calling Duncan the best player in the world, but with what the Lakers have done to him in the playoffs the last couple seasons, there was only one way to cement that title. For the third year in a row, we had Lakers versus Spurs in the postseason, LA chasing a 4th straight title, and San Antonio looking to get back on top. And the big fundamental went mental. After splitting the first 4 games of the series, we had a pivotal Game 5 where Duncan went berserk for 27, 14, and 5 in a huge 2-point win. Then in Game 6 on the champs floor, Timmy goes for 37 points, 16 boards, 4 dimes, and 2 blocks, alongside a scorching 27 and 5 performance from Parker. The Spurs avenge their playoff demons and kill the Lakers dynasty. A German wizard would await them in the conference finals, but the MVP reigned supreme, averaging 28, 16, 5, and 3 on the series to book a ticket back to the NBA Finals. And in the spotlight, at home in Game 6, with a shot to clinch the title, Duncan put up the single greatest performance of his career.
And the NBA Finals Game 6 comes to you from the SBC Center in San Antonio, Texas. The New Jersey Nets and the San Antonio Spurs. New Jersey hoping to push it another game. The Spurs can end it right here tonight.
Detroit series, the Eastern Conference Finals. He had to miss some time.
Tim Duncan back inside of Martin. Blocked by Duncan. Nice beat inside. Block shot is taken for the tie. Got it. Matumbo. Duncan scores inside. Not from out there, he won. And Duncan got another. Now it's Duncan backing in. The kick out. Jackson's hit 2 big threes. He's hit 3. San Antonio, a lot of people talked about their 99 title having an asterisk next to it. The 2003 title's about to have an exclamation point next to it. The San Antonio Spurs are your world champions.
21 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists, and 8 blocks. A near quadruple double in a closeout finals game to win the title. It was the cherry on top to one of the greatest individual seasons the league has ever seen. All-Star, All-NBA First Team All-Defense, Championship, MVP, and Finals MVP. Duncan was on top, undisputably, and for good measure, the Spurs rewarded him with a monster 7-year, $122 million contract. Life was good, and his game was at its peak. Tim was imposing his will in every facet of the game on both sides of the ball. No wasted motion, no unnecessary flair, just clean-cut, efficient basketball. And just like every great, he had that signature shot too. The bank shot, a weapon that no other player in the history of the game has mastered. And it's right on brand because it's boring. I mean, the man would even call out the geometric angle of his shots mid-game. He was a freak. San Antonio was home to the greatest player in the game, and with their eyes set on a repeat in 2004, the Spurs would meet a familiar foe in the second round, the Lakers, for a fourth consecutive season, leading to a pivotal Game 5 in San Antonio. And down one with 11.5 seconds to go in the fourth, the best player in the world came through.
To Duncan. He gets doubled. Shaq all over him. He gets away, a fadeaway. He makes it with 4:10 left. Unbelievable.
With 0.4 on the clock and Shaq draped all over him, Duncan makes one of the most improbable shots of his career. They just need 0.4 seconds of good defense to take a 3-2 series lead.
Here they go. They get it to Fisher. He scores! Derek Fisher scores at the buzzer. It'll have to be reviewed. They'll review it.
Insanity. I don't know how else to describe it. Derek Fisher gets the ball off his fingertips with 1 millisecond left on the clock, burying one of the clutchest, series-altering shots in history. Duncan is shook. LA took all the momentum, winning Game 6 at home, and in the blink of an eye, the Spurs season is over. It was without a doubt the most heartbreaking loss in San Antonio Spurs history. So what better way to bounce back than another heartbreak? Coming off the loss to LA, Duncan was off to Athens to represent the US in the Olympics, fulfilling a childhood dream, just to suffer a humiliating collapse as the States got the bronze medal. Overnight, Tim became the face of USA's greatest Olympic meltdown, not winning for the first time in over a decade, in a country where the gold medal is the only acceptable outcome. Like I said earlier, the NBA is a what have you done for me lately type of league, and all anyone paid attention to were Duncan's recent failures. And the only way to wash this bad taste out of his mouth was with champagne. The following season, we had the last two champions facing off for the 05 title, and it was an all-world defensive chess match. It was ugly and hard-fought, which made winning even sweeter. At home in Game 7, San Antonio captures their third title in 7 years as Duncan silences every bit of doubt from the media, capturing his third Finals MVP trophy, joining Jordan, Magic, and Shaq as the only players to accomplish such a feat. Timmy redeemed himself, and at a time when he can snap back at all his doubters and boast about his greatness, he'd rather give his teammates all the credit.
This trophy is definitely an honor, but this team has so many MVPs. There's so many different guys here just laid it on the line. Bruce, Mano, Tony, these guys just laid it on the line every night, and we couldn't have made this far without any one of them, so every one of them's an MVP.
The redemption title in 2005 was followed by an off year in 2006, but the Spurs were right back at it in 2007, set on reclaiming their throne atop the NBA, and standing in their way was a young phenom. San Antonio was facing a raw 22-year-old LeBron James in the Cleveland Cavaliers, who stood no match to the veteran Spurs dynasty. San Antonio sweeps as they're back on the mountaintop with title number 4 in a span of just 9 years. However, in the midst of celebrating a decade of pure dominance, Duncan shares a moment with LeBron, foreshadowing a future that became reality.
Hey man, you're in with your teammates, man. Stay that way, man. Stay that way. You're gonna drive these guys. This is gonna be your league in a little while. But I appreciate you giving us this year.
Over the next 5 seasons, San Antonio suffered a decline that had been inevitable. You can only be on top for so long. The NBA was getting younger, moving faster, shaped by a mix of old and new faces establishing their legacies on the game. The Celtics finally broke through. Kobe made his way back on top twice. Dirk went through hell and back to capture his first, and that young kid that Duncan spoke to in the locker room had fulfilled the prophecy. The league was his. Despite making the playoffs all of these seasons, San Antonio was just a step behind. The need to shift towards speed and youth was urgent, and that's exactly what they did. On draft night 2011, the Spurs traded for the rights to a promising two-way player out of San Diego State named Kawhi Leonard. Then in 2012, Duncan played his hand perfectly. During the offseason, Tim signed a 3-year, $30 million extension with the Spurs. An absolutely massive pay cut for one of the greatest players the game has ever seen. This move gave San Antonio the flexibility to re-sign Danny Green, Boris Diaw, and Patty Mills. The man is as unselfish and loyal as they come. He's willing to do anything to win, and it paid off. In 2013, Duncan had his best statistical season in over 3 years, and the young guns they'd acquired were a perfect fit. Another Spurs run was brewing. They swept Kobe in round 1, beat a sharpshooting Warriors team in 6, before sweeping the grit and grind Grizzlies to return to the NBA Finals for the first time in 6 years, where Timmy will face the NBA's new king. The 2013 Finals is revered as one of the greatest series in history, and it led us to Game 6, with the Spurs up 3-2 in the series and up 5 with 28 seconds left. In this game, Duncan's turned back the clock with a vintage 30-17 night. But on this possession, the greatest defensive player of the last decade is nowhere to be seen. In fact, he's on the bench. See, Popovich had the philosophy of going small to defend the 3, but it didn't go as planned. LeBron misses a triple, Miami gets the offensive rebound, James reloads and nails it to cut the lead to 2. Kawhi makes one of 2 free throws, and once again, Popovich leaves Duncan on the bench for another critical defensive possession. The look on Tim's face is all you need to see.
He goes for the 3 right away. Just attack the basket. James catches, puts up a 3. Won't go. Rebound Bosch. Back out to Allen. His 3-point. Bang! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining.
Because they were trying to prevent the 3, they take Duncan out, who is their best rebounder. Ray Allen is able to reestablish and knock in the game-tying 3.
What if is the only way to describe this sequence. Had Duncan been in the game, he likely ends up with both defensive rebounds and the Spurs celebrate a return to glory. But instead, Ray Allen hits the clutchest shot of all time, reminiscent of the Derek Fisher heartbreaker in 2004. Miami goes on to win the game in overtime, but the series isn't over. In Game 7, with a minute to go, down 2, Duncan gets the ball in his sweet spot on the left block.
Back to Ginobili, inside Duncan, across the lane. Duncan misses the tip, no good, and Bosch the rebound.
And a point-blank miss by Duncan, and then the follow.
Timeout, Miami.
Duncan shockingly misses a shot that he's made his entire career. Twice. He smacks the floor and simply cannot believe it on the bench. LeBron comes back down and ices the game with the jumper. The Heat celebrate back-to-back titles as the Spurs suffer the most gut-wrenching 2-game stretch you will ever see. With the clock ticking on Tim Duncan's career, this may have been his last shot at a title. How will they respond? The answer is with perfection. The 2014 Spurs played the game at its purest form. Good looks turned into great looks, the ball was jumping, everybody ate. It was like if Tim Duncan was a team. It was perfect fundamental team basketball. They'd go on to survive the gauntlet in the West to return to the NBA Finals. And surprise, surprise, they have the opportunity to enact revenge on the team that broke their hearts a year ago. And I'd like to give you a detailed breakdown of this series, but I don't think I could formulate sentences that could put what the Spurs did into perspective. So I'll just let their game do the talking.
Welcome you once again to San Antonio, Texas, where we're set for Game 1 of the 2014 NBA Finals between the San Antonio Spurs and the Miami Heat. Did reset as they felt they had possession. Oh, Duncan on the follow! 3 turnovers for the Heat. Parker, Ginobili for 3.
San Antonio's defense has been much better.
Mills, not that time. Leonard on the follow! Leonard fakes the 3. Pass inside, Dion and Duncan for the finish. Once again, spectacular ball movement. Leonard for 3. 9! First lead of the game for the Spurs. The Heat have gone cold. Ginobili on the finish. Flushes it with the left hand. Wade, blocked by Splitter.
It was a signature play. Here, Splitter gets his revenge.
Mills for 3. Here in this third quarter, Mills. Bang! This 9-4 of the game. Leonard pushes out to Ginobili. Puts it in! What an avalanche from San Antonio! A 21-point lead! And the final seconds set to tick off. San Antonio is back on top once again. The Spurs are the 2014 NBA champions.
A year ago, they were down and out. A year later, they pull off the greatest redemption tour the league has ever seen, dismantling the Miami Heat in 5 games with an average win margin of 18 points. Duncan joins rare air with his 5th NBA title, including 3 of them in 3 different decades. Nearing the end of an illustrious career, this one may just be the sweetest. And this time around, the 22-year-old Kawhi Leonard is the Finals MVP, signifying another torch being passed in San Antonio. From Robinson to Duncan, and now from Duncan to Leonard. It was a perfect storybook season for the San Antonio Spurs. After the jubilation that was 2014, Duncan would go on to play 2 more seasons, but the Spurs were never able to reach those heights again. To no shock, Duncan's final moments on the hardwood took place in the postseason, as his career came to an end in Game 6 of the Western Conference semifinals in Oklahoma City. No farewell tour, no big press conference, none of that. Just a quiet, fitting exit for one of the greatest and most underappreciated superstars this game has ever seen.